How can we work with culture as a part of our change program? One of the frustrations I meet from business owners and project managers with working with change is that culture is slow and difficult. It's abstract, it's diffuse. Like one of my friends once said, where is it? Where is the thing that I can grab that is culture? So today I'll give you an overview and 5 tips that you can use when working with change. So first of all, what is culture? I like to define culture as simply behavior that breeds more of the same behavior. And this is fruitful because when behavior is part of our definition of culture, then we have something we can observe. Behavior is something we can observe, and it's something we can have an influence on. All right, so here comes 5 tips. And the first one is a fruitful definition. And I like for you to think about behavior as a part of culture. Second of all, we can look at artifacts. And artifacts can be both intellectual and physical. Think on your onboarding material or your process descriptions. These are intellectual artifacts. And by the way, an artifact is an object that has some sort of significance or meaning for the way we work. And changing these can influence culture. A physical artifact can be, for example, literally a physical tool that we use in a process. If your change program is about changing or adding new tools, think on when would be an appropriate time to remove some of the old tools as part of influencing culture. Just be careful that you don't do it too soon. Overly eagerly removing physical objects can give pushback. So be careful and think about what sort of professional or personal relationships people have with the physical objects part of your way of working. Another thing we can look at is rituals. Rituals are events or meetings that has a significance for the way we work. So think on a recurring event. It could be a daily stand-up or a weekly meeting or something of the sort. Try and think on if you can add something that represents your change program. 1-minute resume of what has happened in the last week in terms of progress for your change program, or simply an open mic segment where your employees may check in and tell you things about the change program. Or an emotional check-in. How are people doing in terms of load or overload with the change program? Are we in the red? Are we overloaded? Are we in the yellow, about to be overloaded? Or in the green, things are perfectly fine and we can keep on going as we are. A singular ritual that you may want to look at is saying goodbye to the old way of working. Now I know if you're an engineer, you might think this is a bit touchy-feely or spacey, but I encourage you to think about if it could be appropriate to have perhaps even a minute of silence and saying goodbye to the old way of working. What we hope to achieve with a ritual like this is to give attention and time spent together in recognizing that we have had an old way of working that has served us well, and for reasons which will be clear to you, we now have to say goodbye to this way of working and have to move forward in a new way. Another thing you can look at is the process of culture change. How long do you expect change to happen in terms of culture? I can tell you that anything between 2 to 5 years would be within normal expectancy for a change to affect culture change. It takes a long time, and you may need to find more patience than you have right now. Lastly, there's a tool that I encourage you to look on that is called behavioral design. So I said earlier that that behavior is something that we can observe and design. So an easy recipe in 3 steps for this would be: first, to describe the behavior you want to see. And this is more difficult and will take more time than you might initially think. Describing precisely what the behavior we want to see looks like actually can be quite difficult. Second of all, you want to analyze what can stand in the way of exhibiting the behavior we want to see. In other terms, friction. What friction could there be in doing what we want our employees to do? One example of this I've seen was when implementing a new sales process. We found out that the way we rewarded sales personnel was very good in the old way of working, but not in the new way we were implementing. So it would then be our job to, number 3, remove the friction that stands in the way of exhibiting the behavior we want to see. So this is a segment of a change program where the project might breed new smaller projects. For example, when implementing a new change process, we now suddenly have to look at the rewards for being an employee. The way that behavioral design is fruitful is that we don't push harder on our employees to exhibit the behavior we want to see. No, we remove the friction that stands in the way of them doing it. At this point, they probably already know what behavior you want from them. It's now your job to remove anything that stands in the way for them. All right, so how can we work with culture as a part of our change program? Well, first of all, culture is just behavior that breeds more behavior. We can look at artifacts, both intellectual and physical. We can look at rituals that have a significance to the way we work. So think of your recurring meetings. We can look at the process that we work with culture change. And one of the main things you need to think about is how long do we expect culture change to take? And fifth, and perhaps most importantly, you can look at behavioral design. What is the behavior we want to see? What friction can we find that stand in the way? And how might we remove that friction? Let me end by saying that working with culture is by no means simple or easy. I myself have personally several times been frustrated with how long it takes to push on the inertia and affect culture change. It takes a while. I'm here if you need some help. I'm sure you will figure a way. My name is Emil, and I wish you the best in your culture change endeavors.